you're past 60 and still consuming these 4 everyday foods, you might be unknowingly hindering blood circulation to your most vital masculine area. I'm Dr. Harold Grant, and I've spent over 30 years specializing in men's health, helping men just like you revitalize their circulation, energy, and intimate life. Sadly, most men are never informed of this. Foods you've relied on for years could now be subtly diminishing blood flow, decreasing your desire, and weakening your connection with your partner. But the moment you stop, your body will start to thank you. In this video, I'll reveal these foods and demonstrate how eliminating them can transform your life. Let's start with a truth that's often missed in a doctor's office. After 60, it's not just aging that's the culprit. It's what's happening inside your blood vessels. Before we reveal the 4 detrimental foods, it's important to understand why blood flow naturally decreases as we age, and why the foods you consume now have a significantly greater impact on your intimacy and energy than they did when you were younger. First, let's discuss why blood flow diminishes after 60 and why food is more important than you might realize. I've spoken with countless men in their 60s and 70s, good, strong men, who quietly voice the same concern. Why am I losing my passion? Why does it feel like something's missing? And the reality is, it's not solely due to getting older. It's related to blood flow. After 60, your body's natural production of nitric oxide, the vital molecule that helps blood vessels expand, decreases. Your arteries become less flexible, and smaller vessels, like those in your penis, are the first to be affected. The result is reduced circulation, slower arousal, and a loss of confidence that most men keep to themselves. But here's what compounds the problem. Food. That's right, food. The very meals you depend on for fuel could now be quietly obstructing your arteries, stiffening your vessels, and reducing blood flow where it's needed most. The right foods can aid in restoring circulation. The wrong ones gradually shut it down, day after day. And the most unfortunate part is that many men are unaware of which foods are the guilty parties. So, let me introduce you to the first silent offender hiding in plain sight. One you may have eaten this morning without thinking twice. Second, the first offender is processed meats. You may be surprised to hear this, but one of the most significant threats to your blood flow after 60 could be sitting right there on your breakfast plate. Bacon, sausage, deli ham. These processed meats are loaded with chemical preservatives like nitrates and nitrites, compounds that promote inflammation, harm your arteries, and constrict the very blood vessels crucial for healthy intimacy. I've had patients tell me, "But doc, I've been eating bacon my entire life." And that might be true, but here's the key difference. After 60, your blood vessels become more vulnerable. Your nitric oxide production slows, and your capacity to recover from damage isn't what it once was. So, what used to be a harmless treat now becomes a slow poison to your manhood. These meats stiffen your arteries, reduce blood flow to the penis, and are linked to higher instances of erectile dysfunction in men over 60. One study even revealed that men who regularly consume processed meats have up to a 40% increased risk of sexual performance issues. But the good news is that once you eliminate these meats, even for just a week or 2, your body will begin to repair itself. Many of my patients report improved circulation, increased energy, and even the return of spontaneous morning erections in just a few days. Now, if this sounds like a wake-up call, that's because it is. But processed meats aren't the only silent culprits lurking in your kitchen. There's another food that appears entirely harmless, soft, fluffy, and often advertised as low-fat. But inside your body, it's causing far greater harm. Let's discuss it. If you're still watching and this information is resonating with you, please type a number 1 in the comments to let me know you're still engaged and prepared to reclaim your strength. Now, let's delve into the second hidden food that's quietly draining your blood flow. Third, the second culprit is white bread and refined carbs. It's difficult to resist. That warm slice of white bread, the bowl of white rice, the morning muffin, or low-fat cereal. These are staples in many homes, but for men over 60, they're considerably more harmful than they appear. You see, refined carbohydrates, such as white bread and processed grains, have had their fiber and nutrients removed. What remains is a rapidly digested starch that elevates your blood sugar, increases insulin levels, and triggers chronic inflammation. That may sound like a lot of medical jargon, but here's what it means for you. Those blood sugar spikes silently damage the lining of your blood vessels, especially those responsible for healthy erections. I've witnessed it time and time again. Men who rely on these so-called comfort carbs often feel tired, mentally unclear, and frustrated with their performance. They fail to realize that these foods are hindering their circulation and slowly depriving their penis of oxygen-rich blood. Without healthy blood vessels, there's no foundation for intimacy. And when you combine refined carbs with the slower metabolism and reduced testosterone that naturally accompany aging, the damage is amplified. The result is weaker erections, less energy, and increasing distance in relationships. But the moment you begin replacing these carbs with whole grains like oats, quinoa, or sprouted grain bread, your body will start to respond. Blood sugar stabilizes, energy increases, and most importantly, blood will begin to flow more freely once again. But if you believe sugar is the only hidden danger, think again. There's another common ingredient in your daily meals that quietly constricts your blood vessels, and it might be sitting in your pantry right now. Fourth, the third culprit is excess salt. Salt might not taste dangerous, but for men over 60, excessive amounts of it can silently sabotage your circulation and intimacy without any warning signs. You're likely not adding excessive amounts of salt to your food. However, that's not the real issue. The true threat lies in packaged foods, frozen dinners, canned soups, savory snacks, and even so-called healthy microwave meals. These are often packed with hidden sodium, and over time, that excess salt causes your blood vessels to stiffen and narrow. Why is this important for your performance? Because when arteries harden and constrict, less blood is able to reach the areas that matter most, particularly the penis, which depends on soft, flexible blood vessels to enable full blood flow. I've had countless older patients struggling with weak erections who assumed it was simply age catching up to them. But after reviewing their diets, one thing was consistently apparent: extremely high sodium intake. Once they started reducing salt, opting for fresh, home-cooked meals, and reading nutrition labels, the change was noticeable. Lower blood pressure, stronger morning firmness, and improved stamina followed in just weeks. The damage caused by sodium develops gradually, but the effects of change can be rapid. And the best part is you don't need bland meals, just smarter seasoning with herbs, garlic, and lemon instead of excess salt. Yet, salt isn't the only hidden danger. There's one more food that feels harmless, even comforting. Many men turn to it at night to unwind. But inside your body, it might be disrupting your hormones and shutting down your circulation in ways you never imagined. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, please type the number 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me, ready to take control of your health. Now, let's continue with point number 4. Fifth, the fourth culprit is ice cream and dairy with added hormones. There's something about a bowl of ice cream at night or a tall glass of milk that offers comfort, especially as we age. It's familiar, it's soothing, and for many men, it's part of a nightly ritual. However, after 60, your body responds to dairy differently than it did in your younger years. Most commercial dairy products today, particularly non-organic ones, contain added hormones and inflammatory fats that can interfere with your natural testosterone levels. That's correct. What once felt harmless might now be lowering the very hormone that fuels your desire, your mood, and your ability to perform. I've seen men who unknowingly consumed milk or ice cream daily and couldn't understand why their libido had decreased or why their erections were no longer firm. Once we reduced hormone-laden dairy and replaced it with cleaner alternatives like almond milk, coconut yogurt, or small amounts of hormone-free, grass-fed dairy, the difference was remarkable. Testosterone levels improved, energy returned, and intimacy started to feel natural again, not forced or frustrating. Furthermore, the saturated fats in ice cream can contribute to artery plaque buildup, constricting the very vessels needed for strong blood flow. It's a double whammy: blocked circulation and disrupted hormones. But here's where there's hope. Your body wants to heal, and even minor dietary adjustments can create a noticeable shift within weeks. So, now that we've uncovered these 4 common foods that silently weaken your blood flow and intimacy, let's discuss what actually happens once you eliminate them and how quickly your body can start to turn things around. You might be surprised by how quickly your strength returns. Sixth, let's talk about what happens when you cut these foods out and what to expect in 7, 14, and 30 days. When I consult with patients and we review their diet, I can usually tell immediately who's struggling with slow blood flow, low energy, or declining performance, not just from their age, but from the foods they consume daily. And when I recommend eliminating processed meats, refined carbs, excess salt, and hormone-laden dairy, most men initially hesitate. They ask, "Doctor, will changing my diet really make that much of a difference?" And I always smile and respond with the same thing. Just give it 30 days and observe what occurs. In as little as 7 days, most men notice subtle yet significant changes. Morning erections become more frequent, energy levels start to feel more consistent, and mental fog begins to clear. Why? Because blood flow is improving. Your arteries are starting to relax, inflammation is decreasing, and even your mood starts to improve because better circulation means more oxygen reaching your brain, your heart, and your manhood. By day 14, you might begin to experience a sense of strength you haven't felt in years. One man in his 70s told me he woke up, looked in the mirror, and saw color in his face again. His hands felt warmer. His wife asked him, "What's different about you lately?" That's what happens when blood flows freely once again. It's not just physical, it's emotional, it's personal. You begin to feel like yourself again. By day 30, something deeper occurs. Erections become more reliable, stamina increases, and for many men, confidence returns. Not the kind of confidence that comes from a little blue pill, but the kind that comes from knowing your body is working with you, not against you. That kind of confidence transforms relationships, it deepens intimacy, and it reconnects you with the part of yourself that might have felt lost. Now, of course, results vary depending on your overall health, your commitment to change, and your daily habits. But what's consistent across the board is this: when you stop feeding your body what's harming it, it will begin to heal. It's never too late. I've seen men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s reclaim their vitality simply by making these changes. They didn't require another prescription, they needed the truth. But that leads to an even bigger question: if changing your diet can make this significant of a difference, why aren't more men discussing it? Why didn't your doctor mention it sooner? Why is this knowledge so hidden from men who need it most? The answer might surprise you, and it's something every man over 60 deserves to hear. Let's discuss it. 7th, let's talk about why most men don't know this and why you're smarter than you think. One of the most heartbreaking things I witness in my office is good men, intelligent, hardworking, devoted men, blaming themselves for something they were never taught. They arrive frustrated, ashamed, even hopeless, asking, "Is it just me?" No, it's not just you, and no, this isn't your fault. The truth is, most men have never been told that the real threat to their circulation, their energy, and their intimacy isn't just aging, it's their diet. Not because they're eating carelessly, but because they've been misled for decades. Consider it: for years, the food industry has convinced us that low-fat cereals, white bread, deli meats, and flavored yogurts are part of a healthy lifestyle. Meanwhile, these same foods are silently raising blood sugar, increasing inflammation, blocking nitric oxide production, and choking off the blood flow that keeps you strong, alert, and confident. And most doctors, they're trained to prescribe pills, not discuss nutrition. That's not because they don't care, it's because they're part of a system that reacts to disease instead of preventing it. But you don't have to remain in the dark. You're already ahead of the game simply by being here, by asking questions, and by being willing to make changes. That tells me something significant: you're not the kind of man who gives up. You're the kind of man who takes responsibility, who adapts, and who still believes the best years of life can be lived fully. And you're right, because once you know what to avoid, and more importantly, once you start giving your body the support it needs, circulation improves, intimacy returns, and you feel more in control. That's the power of knowledge, and now that you possess it, no one can take it away from you. But before we conclude, there's one more thing I want to say, something I tell every patient who walks through my door. It's not just about avoiding bad foods, it's about what happens when you reclaim your strength, your clarity, and your connection, not just to your partner, but to yourself. And that's precisely where we're heading in the final message, because this isn't just about blood flow, it's about freedom. Let me explain. Conclusion. Doctor's final message. This is about more than just blood flow. If you've made it this far, then I want to say something to you, man to man. You've already accomplished something most men never do: you've taken the time to understand your body, you've looked beyond symptoms and asked the difficult questions. That takes courage, and it tells me you still believe in your ability to grow, to heal, and to feel strong again. And that belief is the most potent medicine you possess. We've discussed 4 everyday foods: processed meats, white bread, excess salt, and hormone-laden dairy, that may seem harmless, even comforting, but are silently cutting off blood flow, lowering testosterone, and weakening your confidence. I've demonstrated how eliminating those foods doesn't just protect your heart, it restores your manhood, it brings back morning energy, it clears your head, it reignites the spark you thought was extinguished. I've seen it occur repeatedly, even in men over 70 and 80 who were told they were too old to improve. They weren't, and neither are you. I recall one patient in particular, a retired firefighter, 74 years old, who came to me tired, quiet, and disconnected. He wasn't just concerned about performance, he was concerned about his marriage, about the growing distance between him and his wife. He thought it was over. But once we modified his diet, supported his blood flow, and helped him reconnect with his health, something came back to life in him. 3 months later, he came into my office smiling. He looked taller, younger, more alive. He didn't say much, he simply said, "Thanks for giving me back to her." That's what this is truly about. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about feeling like yourself again, not just physically, but emotionally. When blood flows freely, so does your sense of identity, intimacy, and control. You begin to navigate the world differently, with clarity, strength, and presence. That impacts everything: your energy, your mood, your connection to your partner, your will to keep living fully. So, as we conclude, I want you to remember this: your best years are not behind you, they're simply waiting for the right conditions to emerge again. You don't need to pursue youth, you need to honor your wisdom, and part of that wisdom is recognizing what no longer serves you and letting it go. The wrong foods can quietly steal your strength, but the right choices can bring it roaring back. You have what it takes, your body can still change, your blood can still flow strong, and your story isn't finished yet, not even close. I'm Dr. Harold Grant, and I believe in your comeback. Let's make it happen, one choice, one meal, one day at a time. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with a friend or loved one who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. I read every single one. And if you'd like to support this work so we can continue creating honest, life-changing content for men over 60, consider making a small donation. Your support truly makes a difference.